having an fMRI done is actually a pretty unpleasant experience. You can't move for upwards of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Like, you literally just have to lie like a hot dog.
Well, I grew up in central New Jersey in a town called Millington, which is about it's like an hour and a half from New York City. And yeah, you know, I pretty much lived in Millington my entire life. I've learned a lot about neuropsychology from my mentor, who is Karen Murphy, Dr. Karen Murphy. She's a neuropsychologist at New York University. I've learned an unreasonable amount from my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teacher, Christian Montes, both in terms of martial arts and in terms of learning about sort of new ways of thinking about the way my body moves through space, which I think is very interesting to me in particular. The way that we live and the things that we do are, to me, it seems more a function of you know, the social and political forces that are affecting us at any given time. Now, that being said, I think there are definitely certain kinds of people that are drawn towards, like, for example, extreme sports. So I think risk aversion is actually something that is a more sophisticated process that emerges in people only after they've achieved a certain stage of maturity or have learned about you know, the way that you know, chaos in life kind of rears its ugly head at every possible turn. But studying neuropsychology, I think, hasn't impacted how I understand my generation in particular as much as it's impacted how I understand people. You know, I think it's sort of, I've always kind of tended towards the determinist, materialist kind of view of what makes people behave the way they do, and I think neuropsychology has kind of put me almost in a more extreme camp there, with the belief that you know, people essentially have almost no voluntary control, so to speak, over their behavior, and the way that we interact with the world is a function of you know, external reality and our brain physiology, and of course the relationship there is very complex. You know, brain physiology can change with, you know, behavior that's spurred by the outside world and so on and so forth. You know, the way kids behave in middle school is that kids, and boys in particular, have a pretty poorly developed prefrontal cortex, as it were. They have a pretty bad ability to gauge, you know, the potential ramifications of the behaviors that they engage in. So there's always this game of chicken that takes place with adolescent boys, which is something that I'm very interested in studying, where, you know, somebody engages in some kind of impulsive behavior, and that impulsive behavior registers in another child or adolescent, if you will, and it just sort of, you know, elevates and gets to the point where some kind of physical confrontation happens.
If I had to say anything about our generation, I would say that we're actually probably quite a bit more typical and normal than the media would make us out to be. But that's not my opinion as a neuropsychologist. That's just my opinion as you know, a 26-year-old kid with a bachelor's degree in liberal arts.